there you have it, folks. It's finally happening. All those phone calls, all those emails, all the efforts that people have put into really shining a light on the exploitive nature that is credit card companies, payment processors, has finally at least given us some sort of win here. And that is a response from Mastercard. Now, it's not the response we're looking for. Let's be honest. This is just pure gaslighting. This isn't the droid you're looking for. We're not the ones at fault here. And there's easily some stuff out there already that completely disputes this response. But this at least shows that everybody's efforts is at least forcing them to have to respond. And I say, don't let up. Keep pressing. And again, I still emphasize that this isn't really the best avenue to fix the situation. I still think it is calling your representatives and telling them that payment processors are acting like government officials and dictating what you can lawfully buy. But again, I think it's a good quick fix, because if we can push them, eventually they will have to undo what damage they've done until they can eventually damage it again. And hopefully by then, we can put something in effect that prevents it from happening ever again. But yes, to get people really quickly caught up, but for a while here, we've had a lot of situations where payment processors are essentially strong-arming companies into removing legally sellable items from their stores. Steam had the whole situation happen, and I think this is really where it kind of kicked up. But this is something that's been happening in Japan for the longest time. There's been a lot of situations in Japan where especially Visa themselves are contacting companies that are selling legal items and telling them they can't use their service anymore, which forces them to have to remove the items from their store in order to stay in business. Well, again, with the whole Steam situation happening, I think it really did catch the broader attention of people. Not that a lot of people care about the items that were removed here. These are a lot of just adult stuff that barely anybody's buying. But it's simply the case where it showed people that payment processors can do this, that it scared a lot of people. What's next is basically the question mark. And yes, looking at a lot of what Collective Shout, which was the company that was behind this, or the activist group that was behind this, looking at what they were sort of showing as things that they found problematic, it did show a sign that things like Detroit Become Human and GTA, these other games that they had their eyes on, could be next. And so it kind of did force a lot of people to kind of join together and say, whoa, let's stop this now before it gets too bad. And again, because of this, a lot of people started a lot of campaigns, including emailing, calling, and whatnot. And I think that got like a broader attention. And I think, as based on what this comment says, this was sort of a response for a lot of mainstream media finally picking up on this. So let's look at the actual response. It says, clarifying recent headlines on gaming content. Mastercard has not evaluated any game or required restrictions of any activity on game creator sites and platforms, contrary to media reports and allegations. Yes, I know. There's already stuff out there right now that disproves this statement, but let's stick with it. Our payment networks follow standards based on the rule of law. X'd out. Put simply, we allow all lawful purchases on our network. At the same time, we require merchants to have appropriate controls to ensure Mastercard cards cannot be used for unlawful purchases, including illegal adult content. So based on this response, they're saying they allow their stuff to be used on all lawful stuff. Keep that in mind. As we go over here to Kotaku. Kotaku, very rare, massive W, by the way. Massive credits to Ethan Gatch. I hope I'm saying that right. They have on their website here, Mastercard denies pressuring Steam to censor not safe for work games. In the article, yes, it notes that Mastercard has responded. Here's the response. We just read that. The thing we want to zero in on with this article is the update that they have down here. In a statement to Kotaku, a spokesperson for Valve said that while Mastercard did not communicate with it directly, concerns did come through payment processor and bank intermediaries. They said payment processors rejected Valve's current guidelines for moderating illegal content on Steam, citing Mastercard's Rule 5.12.7. And we're going to get into what that is. Mastercard did not communicate with Valve directly, despite our requests to do so. Valve's statement sent over email to Kotaku reads, Mastercard communicated with payment processors and their acquiring banks. The payment processors communicated this with Valve, and we replied by outlining Steam's policy since 2018 of attempting to distribute games that are legal for distribution. Payment processors rejected this and specifically cited Mastercard's Rule 512.7 and risk to the Mastercard brand. And there it is. And there it is. Rule 512.7 states a merchant must not submit to the acquirer and a customer must not submit to the interchange system any transaction that is illegal. And Steam's following that, right? We're good so far. Or, in the sole discretion of the corporation, may damage the goodwill of corporation or reflect negatively on the marks. And there it is. For those that don't know, this sounds very, very familiar to the same game plan that Visa themselves have pulled in the past. Back last year, while they were having a lot of situations where Visa was essentially shutting down a lot of companies in Japan, forcing them to have to delist a lot of stuff from their websites, there was a little statement that came out of nowhere from the president of Visa Worldwide Japan. They stated that while Visa wants to make its payment services available to legal and legitimate products and services as much as possible, it may sometimes decline purchases to protect the brand. That was the big quote that a lot of people were throwing everywhere. And yes, even Taro Yamada, the politician I've been following for a while now, he immediately went after them with that statement. The fact that they're saying specifically, even if it is legal, we will decline it to protect the brand. The idea behind that whole thing is that there's sort of this idea that when somebody goes to a website and there's something like inappropriate on it, they don't want that logo on there. And when you are purchasing something, it'll typically show that. And so my assumption here is with this particular 512.7 mark here, saying specifically reflect negatively on the marks, I'm thinking they're probably talking about their actual brand. They don't want it to look bad on them if there's something inappropriate on the site. It goes on, the sale of products or services, including an image which is patently offensive and lacks serious artistic value, such as, by the way, example, not limited, images of non-consensual exploitation of youngs, non-consensual mutilation of person's body part or bestiality, or any other material that the corporation deems unacceptable to sell in connection with a mark. Violation of Rule 512.7 can result in fines, audits, and companies being dropped by the payment processor. Put simply, we allow all lawful purchases on our network. At the same time, we require merchants to have appropriate controls ensuring Mastercard cannot be used for unlawful purchases, including illegal content. That doesn't say the same thing there. That does not say the same thing there. They're saying they allow all stuff as long as it's legal, but then over here, they're literally saying that if it seems like it's too inappropriate, they'll take it off. That's not the same thing there. The stuff on Steam was not illegal. It was not illegal. Now, yes, you can say the idea of imagery and whatnot being like exploitive whatnot, but they're video games. And again, they're still legal. But again, counter to here where it says nothing about that, it's specifically saying if it's lawful, you're fine. The two statements don't match. That's their biggest problem. But the key thing here is the response from Valve is pointing out this is Mastercard. So we do at least have definitively who is at fault here, because that was the big question mark that I had. Because Collective Shout had listed so many different companies, now granted, the only ones that were important for Steam specifically was going to be Visa, Mastercard, and PayPal. Those are the three big kings. One of those three have to be the one that would have told Steam to stop. Otherwise, Steam would have said, there's the door. Those three ones they can't say that to. So it had to be one of those three. Here at least has finally confirmed it is MasterCard. Now, yes, Steam is saying specifically it wasn't MasterCard directly. They wanted to talk to MasterCard. No, it was through other companies. It was from banking intermediaries. It was from payment processors. It was individuals that were going through MasterCard that they're kind of implying the idea that they sent them to talk to them for them, which is kind of scummy. I will have to admit that is pretty darn scummy. But at least shows us that's our target. MasterCard is a target, which honestly is surprising to me because I assumed it was going to be Visa. Because again, Visa has been pretty much the big one in Japan that has been causing a lot of problem there. Again, like we mentioned earlier, this statement, protecting their brand, it was Visa. And again, technically, Taro Yamada has had to go to Visa Worldwide America directly to try to get a response about what they're doing there. It's always been Visa with Japan. With America, or at least with this situation so far, it looks like it's MasterCard. And again, based on what Valve has said. So again, at least we got a response. And again, we've finally got an actual confirmation about who is the one that's really doing the pulling for at least with Steam specifically. So, like I said before, keep it going. Keep pressing them. I think there could be a good chance here that through all this pressure, eventually MasterCard might end up contacting Steam, or Steam themselves, seeing that this is something that's going to continue to go on, might finally get a hold of somebody at MasterCard, and they can at least get a sort of a nod that, hey, we're cool now. But, like I said earlier, that's only going to be temporary. That's only going to be a temporary thing. Eventually, this is going to happen again. Because, again, there's nothing here that's going to, regulations-wise or law-wise, going to prevent them from doing this again. That's why I keep pushing the idea of people contacting representatives and saying, hey, they're making laws behind your back. And I don't know if that's cool with you. But anyways, definitely check out my previous video that I made on that situation. I have the bills there as well if you guys want to check those out. But I just want to give people an update here, and very interesting stuff here. Basically, MasterCard trying to gaslight the entire internet by saying we're not doing nothing. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below. If you like this content, you want to support more, become a member of the channel. Until next time, y'all take care.